What is your job title and what are your main responsibilities? So I'm a landscape designer. I work with homeowners who are my clients to design a garden for them, and then I supervise the installation of that design by contractors. Why did this type of work initially appeal to you, and how did you get started? So I always loved art as a child. I took lots of classes. In high school, I took calligraphy, sculpture, drawing, and even in college, while I was pursuing a completely different course of study, I worked part-time at an ad agency doing graphic design. So I had a strong design and art background. I also had a background in gardening. I had two parents who loved to garden and who loved to visit gardens. Although I have to admit that I never really enjoyed it until I owned my first garden. And all of a sudden I realized that over the years of garden visits and time spent with my parents, I had accumulated a lot of knowledge of horticulture. And when I had my own garden, all of a sudden this knowledge came back to me, and combined with the aesthetic choices I was making about designing my own garden, I really enjoyed my time and realized that I wanted to spend more time doing that. And so I started looking into classes and training. I took a training program that's for continuing ed, and it was in the evenings. I could do it after my unrelated job, and found that I enjoyed using all the skills that had been dormant for many years. Finally, friends started asking me to help, and I would help them install a garden and then be asked by a neighbor if I could help the neighbor. I finally realized that I was enjoying that work more than the other work I was doing, and decided to see if I could make a living at it. And so 8 years ago, I started my own business, and it's been terrific. I've really enjoyed it. Describe a typical day. So I have two sorts of days. I have a business and paperwork day, and then I have an installation day. The office days are really spent right here. I may have a client meeting in the morning, but usually what I'm doing is researching ideas that I have for a client's project, maybe drawing sketches to show them at our next meeting, researching plant materials so that I can give them options, coming up with sketches so that they can see how the plants would look around their home in relation to their house. And then once we've agreed on the planting plan, I need to put that down essentially in a map on paper. And that's something like what I have right here, which is a landscape plan that can be followed by both the client and the contractors who do the installation, telling them exactly the number of plants, the grade changes, the measurements for project, and all of this can be used to calculate an estimate of cost for the project that comes both from me and also estimates from my contractors. So in an office day, I may be working on the computer or sketching at a light table or on a architecture table, but I'm not outside most of the time. On the installation days, it completely changes. You wouldn't know that the two worlds are related. Those days I'm up really early and out the door at the client's site, usually at 6:30 or 7 to meet the delivery truck. I need to check every plant that's delivered to the work site to make sure that it's high quality and healthy. So I'm looking at those plants as they come off the truck, and usually I'm rolling up my sleeves and helping with the unloading. As soon as we finish unloading, I turn around and talk with the contractors about what they're doing, help them decide an order of installation, mark out beds for flowers and trees, decide how I want everything placed, talk with the contractors about masonry. Maybe they're building a patio and we need to discuss adjustments that they noticed the day before. It's just very intensive, in the moment work with, and I should say, a group of guys, because 90% of the people I work with are men, figuring out how to get that installation accomplished in an efficient manner. Those days I'm in the car a lot, because if they run out of materials, I may have to drive over to a nursery or to a stone quarry to pick out additional materials. I may have to run out to check on contractors at a different site, because I usually have multiple projects being installed at the same time. But these are very fun days where I'm usually pretty dirty by the end of the day. I eat lunch in my car. It's definitely not white collar work, and I have to say that I thoroughly enjoy it. How would you describe the job atmosphere and the people with whom you work? I think you have a pretty good idea now of my job situation. Either it's a desk day or an installation day. The people, as I mentioned, most of the contractors are men. A lot of them are Spanish speaking, and my Spanish is not great, but they're very kind, very good people, and I love working with them. I have managed over the years to develop very strong relationships with excellent craftspeople, and that is one of the best things that I bring to my clients, is those relationships. Otherwise, it's just a number in the phone book that somebody has to call. I have worked with these people, and I know what they can deliver, and they know that I have high expectations for the project, and they meet the standards that we agree on together. So I really enjoy working with my contractors. They're great people. I also work with clients, and my clients generally are hardworking people who have high incomes, who can afford to spend money on landscaping their homes. They often have ideas about what they want to accomplish, but maybe not necessarily any expertise about gardening, and that's where they need my help. What part do you find most enjoyable and most challenging? So I really enjoy finding elegant solutions. Most people call me because they have a problem. They don't like the look of their yard, or they want to be able to spend more time in it in a certain way. They need a patio, for example, and they want to have a space for cooking. And sometimes they have really big problems like erosion issues or a crumbling retaining wall that needs to be fixed. I can listen to the problem and then suggest solutions, all of which will both fix the problem and make the garden look better. So it's important to be able to combine both skills. I'm not just concerned about functionality, I'm also hoping to deliver on aesthetics. And I really enjoy collecting the knowledge from my contractors, from my experiences, from visiting other gardens, so that I can provide that type of service to my clients and share my vision for what we could do in their yard. It's a process of winning their trust and showing them that either I or my contractors are going to be able to solve the problems that they called me about. Probably the most challenging part of my job is also working with clients. I tend to work with lots of folks who have high pressure jobs, who have very strong opinions, and who want it done immediately. And there is a whole process of convincing them that they can trust me and demonstrating that I know what I'm doing, so that they can relax and rely on me and my contractors and the process. And that can be easier with some people than with others. I think it's true in any profession, but in landscaping it's a big one. It's sometimes frustrating, but I think generally if somebody has hired me, they're looking for solutions, and once they realize that I can deliver that, they're relieved. How does the job impact your lifestyle, time, resources, health, and family? Well, I have to say that I have deliberately structured my business to provide myself with maximum flexibility. I have 2 teenagers, I have a husband who works full-time, he helps stabilize the family income, and so I have the luxury of being able to work when I want to and as much as I want to. I work hard. During installation season, I'm working 60, 70 hours a week at least. But I also have downtime in the summer months and in the winter months. In the summer because it's too hot to plant, and in the winter months because it's too cold. I try to do design work and catch up with paperwork in those seasons, but I will fully admit that I enjoy having a little downtime built into my annual schedule. Also, the working conditions are great. I'm outside a lot. Now, some days it's not nice, and I'm still outside, but I do love the fresh air. I love being in nature. I really enjoy being able to look at beautiful homes and see beautiful gardens and make things look beautiful. It's a very pleasurable experience. And I think most important for my family, I am able to structure my day in a way that works for my kids. So if I need to get somebody to a flute lesson in the afternoon, I tell my contractor, I'm leaving the site at 3 o'clock today, and we'll take a look at what you've done before I go, and I'll check in first thing in the morning, but I'm out of here. And they are fine with that. And I have not seen that in many careers, and I'm very fortunate to have that flexibility. Does your career relate to your life mission? So I picked my career because of my passion for design and gardens, and I haven't looked back. I really enjoy that. But about 5 years ago, I've been doing this for 8 years, and about 5 years ago I started to scratch my head and think that I really only seem to work for people with a lot of disposable income, and is that the best thing for me to be doing to help the world? And I've taken a lot of comfort from two aspects of my work that have occurred to me and become more of an emphasis for me. One is the fact that I improve the quality of life of my clients. One of my clients may have a very stressful week. He comes home, he looks out in the garden, and his blood pressure goes down. I get emails from people all the time saying things like, I looked out in my backyard today and I saw snowdrops in February. Well, I planted those snowdrops, and I feel really good about that. I really like helping people enjoy nature and connecting with that once they get home from their office. So that's a good feeling. The other is that I have tried to focus much more in my practice on sustainable design and helping the earth, for lack of a better term. I use native plants where possible. I try to get clients to include pollinator plants. I'm very conscious of best practices and ask all of my contractors to be very careful in how we work the earth so that we're not destroying microbes and installing something that requires a huge amount of water. I talk to people about maybe reducing some of their lawn size and replacing it with plants. These are all steps that seem significant to a client, but they're really a nice way to enhance a garden. And as they accumulate in a neighborhood, they make a pretty big difference. So I feel it's something that I and others in my profession can make a very positive contribution to, and I feel good about that. Describe someone who would excel in this career. So I think first and foremost, a good landscape designer has a good eye and is artistic. They need to be able to walk into the client's space and have a vision for how that space can become more useful and more beautiful. And lots of people don't have that. I feel that my art training was critical to having that ability in my work. Beyond that, I think attention to detail is key, because I need to be making sure that everything my contractors do is done to a very high standard and is done well. And so I educate myself about what that means, and also keep an eye on what they're doing so that the final product is as high quality as I want. I think it's also helpful to have other skills, such as being comfortable being entrepreneurial. I run my own business. I don't have any employees. I do all my own paperwork. I market my own business, and I enjoy that So it's important to be comfortable with that. Having good people skills. You've heard me talk about how much I interact with the contractors. I need to be able to get along with people of every education level and every socioeconomic level. And I think I do a pretty good job of that. It's really important to be able to connect with and communicate with people. Also an interest in science and horticulture, because so much of what we do is tied to the plants that we grow. So having a pretty broad range of these skills is critical for the practice of landscape design. It's very multidisciplinary. I'm skipping one. What is a typical career path? So most people wouldn't go into landscape design as a second career, although there are many who have. I think a more typical route is to go to an undergraduate program either in horticulture or landscape design, or start studying landscape architecture and maybe get a master's degree. There are great programs, especially at a lot of the agriculture-based schools around the United States. There are also continuing ed programs at some of those schools for people who are considering second careers. And I think that training is essential, because I think it's hard to turn a gardening hobby into a gardening profession. It's very helpful to actually study plant lists, plant materials, construction methods and designs, and also to learn the method of rendering that's required and understandable by contractors. So finding a program, whether it's full-time undergraduate or evening programs, is, I think, critical. After that education process, lots of people will go to work for either a public garden or a large design firm or maybe a nursery. And they work for anywhere from a couple of years to a decade to get more experience on someone else's dime, to learn best practices, because a lot of this stuff is not intuitive and it's not in books, and it really pays to watch someone who is a master doing the work and asking questions. After that, it would be a good time to consider opening your own business so that you get flexibility and the rewards of being the principal owner. But I would say that's a more typical path for someone who is a landscape designer. What's the outlook for this career? I think it's good. As we become more dependent on technology, and as technology becomes a bigger part of our lives, we need to reconnect with nature. I see that in my clients every day. They need to decompress and spend time outside with their families, relaxing, and having a beautiful garden to go to outside of your home really makes that possible. The one caveat for this industry is the economy. When things are good, landscape designers are busy, and when the economy struggles, landscape design is probably one of those disposable items that gets cut off the family budget. It's not a necessity, it's a luxury. And so landscape designers are subject to the whims of the economy. That said, I think being in a metropolitan area is a good stabilizing factor. And also just having a network of contractors and colleagues who can cross-refer business is helpful. But it is definitely something that is not 100% stable and can withstand any economic downturn. That said, it's a great field if you enjoy design, nature, being outside, and running your own business. So I hope that this appealed to you. Thanks.